Hello and welcome to Planet Smasher HQ. From the mess in the workshop here, it should be apparent that I've had a busy 6 weeks. Stick around and I'll fill you in. Hello and welcome back to Planet Smasher HQ. It's been a hot minute since I did a retrospective on what's been going on, so let me tell you what's been going on. So over the last 6 weeks, I've really had two main goals. The first has been to finish the textbook that Glenn and I have been working on together for probably 2 years now. I haven't talked hugely about it either on the Rule of Carnage channel or here on Planet Smasher, but what it is it is a textbook entitled The Fundamentals of Tabletop Miniature Games Design, a designer's handbook. And it encapsulates everything that Glenn and I have learnt and discovered through designing games for nearly 10 years professionally, and from researching and reading just hundreds of other people's miniature games. The objective of the book is to define what it is to be a tabletop miniature games design, figure out what makes them different to board games with miniatures or other kinds of card and board games. It's also an analysis of all the different sort of mechanical tropes and norms that go into miniature games. So we've been through each of the various sections that you would normally find in a miniature game, and we've analysed and looked at lots of different ways of approaching those mechanically, from activation systems, initiative systems, movement, combat. I'm really excited with where the textbook has got to. As games designers and as members of the Rule of Carnage Discord community, we're often discussing the fact that there is no central text that just defines and goes through the details of what making a miniatures game needs. And so that's what we've tried to do. It'll be a while until it sees print. We are preparing the final manuscript at the moment, but you can rest assured that I will be trumpeting on this channel and on Rule of Carnage as soon as we know the date that it drops. I expect it will probably be in 2025 at this point. So the other main focus has been Salute. Now, I have demoed Hobgoblin once before at UKGE. The armies that I brought were small and a little bit unfinished, and I wasn't super confident about showing the game off, partly because I didn't know when exactly it was going to be released, but partly because we had a small space and lots of things to demo. I was quite pleased with how much A Billion Suns I sold that weekend. So the preparation for Salute was a little bit intense. I perhaps left it a little bit late, but what I decided with about a week left was that I wanted to run 2 tables, which meant I needed 4 armies and 2 sets of terrain. I had 2 armies, but neither of them were completely finished. I had 1 army that honestly had a few too many Games Workshop models for me to be comfortable using it as a demo for Hobgoblin. And then I was struggling because I didn't have a 4th army. So cue a frantic week of amassing the models that I had, trying to figure out what the lists were that I was going to take and what models I needed to paint in order to be ready with something that looked cool and that grabbed people's attention. I had a Infernal Dwarfs army, mostly from Lost Kingdom, that was mostly done. It just needed a centerpiece model, finished painting, and some characters to represent the general and the battle standard. That ended up looking really cool. I had also a Goblin army, mostly from Asgard Rising miniatures. That had a decent number of miniatures painted, but a few of them were a little bit unfinished, and again, it needed a centerpiece and some character models added, so they were the next thing to get done. I decided that I probably could use my undead army because the majority of the models were Crocodile Games models. I really love them. And I had available to me some other figures that I could drop in. In particular, there was a Lost Kingdom undead giant with a big bow that was going to be the centerpiece model. So I painted that up and I rebased some of the characters so that they would all fit in. It's also worth saying I had to go through and make sure all of the movement trays were properly textured and painted so that everything looked consistent. For the 4th army, I was a little bit stuck. I went to Glenn to have a look at his Hobgoblin demo armies, but they weren't based anything like the rest of my armies, and I wanted to have a consistent look. I took them and had a little look, but popping them off the base was looking like it was going to probably damage them a bit too much, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get it done satisfactorily. So the Tuesday before the Saturday that we were due to go to Salute, I woke up and I grabbed a box of A Song of Ice and Fire Dothraki miniatures. Now here we've got a group of 4 units of horsemen. It's not very many models, but that represents quite a large army in Hobgoblin terms. 4 units of heavy cavalry, or maybe 1 of light cavalry. Adding to that, I found a cool dragon miniature that I got from a Kickstarter for this lovely card game. I don't think you use the miniature in the game, but the mini's great, and I figured that a big red fiery dragon would complete that army. That gave me 5 units, and I could definitely turn that into a 2,000 point Hobgoblin army. So I got it undercoated and zenithal sprayed on the Tuesday morning, and I started applying contrast paints and texture basing paste, and I was really delighted that I got that whole force, I guess it's only 17 models, but that whole army painted in 48 hours. So I was ready for Salute. I had 4 armies. I finished some terrain pieces that had been hanging around for a while and I needed to get painted up. It was a hectic week, but the demo tables ended up looking great. And I was delighted to be showing off Hobgoblin to people all day at Salute. Had a bunch of people come past, and because of the simplicity of the game, it was pretty easy for me to host 2 demo games at a time. The other cool thing about Salute was I got to meet Art, who's the guy who's been working on the Hobgoblin Army Builder. He was a super cool dude, and it was really nice to hang out. Speaking of the Army Builder, in preparation for Salute, I wanted to have quick reference sheets for the army so people could see the units that they had and make reference to any of the keywords that those units had. So I asked Art if he had much thinking on a print mode to allow us to print our armies out from the Army Builder, and he had already been working on it. He was able to give me secret access to the print mode, and having played around with it, I made a couple of tweaks to include the notes, the description from the army, because there I had included some setting and lore for each of the armies, as well as a little description of how best to play them. And that's a change that he's made in the Army Builder, and he has now updated the Army Builder to offer these cool quick reference sheets. So you can now go to the Army Builder, and if you build an army, you too can have these lovely printouts that have the list of the units, and then it has all the quick reference for the keywords that you're using in your army. The other thing I did in advance of Salute was I got some quick reference sheets printed up for Hobgoblin. This is a little A5 edition, and this is the quick start rules that have the basic engine of the game and the stats for the units, and some of the keywords, but no magic, and lots of the army building options aren't included. When I got to Salute, I was delighted to discover that Greg at Electi had put one of these in every bag for Salute. So everyone that went to Salute got to hear about the game, and a ton of people obviously came past to have a look at it in action. Salute, all in all, was kind of exhausting, but thoroughly enjoyable. I was delighted to have Hobgoblin out there being demoed and showing off what I think is so cool about it. Retrospecting on the experience of demoing the game to so many new people on Saturday, I guess a couple things sprang out to me. The first was the resolution system being a single roll of a fistful of dice. I made that because I wanted a slick and simple system that was going to be really fast to resolve combats. But it had this other effect that I only really understood when I was showing it to new players and they were enjoying it in groups together. And that's that when they threw their combat dice, they would throw the dice and they would be able to look at the dice and immediately see if there was a bunch of 6s or a bunch of 1s. They could read the result of the combat instantly in one go. And quite often they would throw the dice and there would be shouts of delight or groans of dismay. And it struck me that the having of a single dice pool really allowed people to connect with the results of the combat straight away in a really instant and instinctual way. Whereas when you have a system with multiple resolution steps, the classic Warhammer roll to hit, roll to wound, roll to save, each of those steps provides a piece of the puzzle about what has happened in the combat, but none of the individual dice rolls really strikes you as important because anything that you roll in one is going to be undermined or changed by the next one. So I think that for me as a designer, it was really interesting to see how not just speeding up the resolution, but really providing a much more visceral and direct connection between the rolling of the dice and understanding what's happening in the combat. So that was really cool. The other thing that was nice was that I took along a bunch of wooden rulers, and I used these because I wanted to help people understand how the rank and flank movement works, particularly the fact that when you spend movement points to advance, you have to go in a straight line. Lots of people tend to side slip on the way, and I can understand why, but it's not the rules of Hobgoblin. But these ended up being really, really useful in helping people adapt to, what is quite an old-fashioned way of moving units around. I'm not the first person to discover these, but they worked really well as I was demoing the game. Okay, so that was Salute. What else has been going on? Well, so I've been talking to a bunch of people. I've been talking to Offspray about the second edition of A Billion Suns, and about the potential of a new edition for Gaslands. Now, I haven't got anything signed and sealed with those guys, but conversations are going really well. I'm really enjoying bouncing ideas backwards and forwards, and I'm certain that we're going to figure out what the right way forward is for both of those projects. I will let you know more as I know more. I've also been talking to a few people on the internet. So you will have seen I did a couple of interviews with Ash from Guerrilla Miniature Games, which was super, super fun. We did one that was more focused on me as Planet Smasher Games and how making the transition from part-time to full-time was working out for me. And the second conversation I had with Ash was one that I was really wanting to have publicly somewhere, but I hadn't figured out where the right place was. I said at the beginning of this journey, in the first video back in January, that I wanted to talk about my experiences with occupational burnout last year. And Ash has had a similar experience over the last year and was also keen to talk about it and address some of the things that he's seen and experienced. And I wanted to talk about some of the things that helped me understand what I went through, really just so that I can share what I've learned, because I think that if I had known more about the causes and the symptoms of occupational burnout, I think I would have been less affected by it. I think I would have caught it earlier, and I think I would have known what was going on and been able to handle it better. So I'm really, really pleased that the second conversation I had with Ash was about dealing with burnout, and I hope that you will be interested to go and watch it. And I was really delighted to have a number of people come up to me at Salute and say thanks for that conversation. That really made me feel good. I also had a chat with Pete at the Esoteric Order of Gamers. We chatted across a range of miniature games topics, and you can watch that conversation. All three of these conversations are linked in the video description below. I also recorded a conversation with Chris McDowell for his Bastionland podcast, which will be out probably next month. That was really an awesome conversation. He and I share a decent amount of gaming heritage, and so we were comparing notes on some of our earliest experiences and some of the stuff that has inspired me recently. I'll let you know when that drops. The other thing that's been going on is I've been chatting to a potential art director for my first Kickstarter campaign. I am currently thinking about Perilous Tales again, and I don't know if that's the first project that I'll put to Kickstarter, but given how long it's been out there and how it is fairly well known and people like it, I'm very much thinking that that's probably going to be the first thing that I will try and turn my hands to as a full premium Planet Smasher Games product. You'll hear more of that as it develops. I've got lots of ideas and no plans yet, so I need to crystallize my thinking into some documentation, and then I need to start working out what the timelines are going to look like and what's going to be possible and when. Okay, so let's talk numbers. How have I been doing on the numbers front? Well, the website has gone great guns over the last 6 weeks. I've had 15,000 visitors. Compare that to 2,500 back in January. This is really working out quite well at the moment, and that's fantastic. That lets me know that people are finding Planet Smasher Games and they are seeing the things that I'm up to. I should mention one of the things that I have been up to and that I published on the website was my new game, or my prototype game, Flagstone. Now that's the first Chess 28 game that I've made. I had a crazy inspiration hit me a couple of weeks back, and I came up with a manifesto, the Chess 28 manifesto, which you can watch by clicking the linked video below. I was inspired by the idea that chess could potentially be miniature agnostic, and I got excited by the idea of making a goofy manifesto to inspire other people. And so the Flagstone rules I have released on my itch, but also I have released the core engine of that game, which I'm calling the Chess 28 core system. I've released that as Creative Commons. So if you are inspired by the Chess 28 manifesto, you can go ahead and make your own Chess 28 game unrelated to mine, or you can take my rule system and kind of adapt it and drift it from there. It's a bit of an experiment for me, but I'm kind of excited, and the response has already been fantastic. So yeah, I'm really excited about Flagstone and Chess 28 in general. On the channel here, I got just shy of 200 new subscribers and passed the 1,000 subscriber mark, which is fantastic. I've definitely got Ash to thank for that. Getting some promotion by appearing on his channel and talking about what I'm up to on Planet Smasher Games clearly helped. 1,000 subscribers is a big milestone for me, and I'm really excited. In terms of the Patreon, Over at patreon.com/planetsmashergames, I've picked up another 14 Patreon supporters over the last 6 weeks. Thank you so much for your support. If you like what I'm up to and want to see me continue on this mad journey, then please head on over to patreon.com/planetsmashergames and consider buying me a cup of coffee a month. And finally, I closed the Gaslands survey that I advertised 6 weeks ago at 870 something responses, and I published the analysis of the data on the planetsmashergames.com website. So you can take a look at what the Gaslands community said about Gaslands and how they found it and what they liked about it. That information was super valuable to me, and Offspray and I had a look at the data in some detail to try and inform our discussions about what we're going to do with the game next. Okay, so what games have I played recently? Well, I've played a bunch of Flagstone. I got an opportunity to playtest it with Joe McCullough. We went out for breakfast, and because it was a little chessboard with some miniatures on, we were able to eat bacon sandwiches in a cafe near his and play the game as well in public, and it didn't look too much like we were playing a miniature game. So Flagstone, top stealth miniature game for those people looking to play in public. I also got to playtest it with my friend Will, and I got to playtest it with my dad, which was great. I've obviously played a fair amount of Hobgoblin, although mostly I've been games mastering demos. The Hobgoblin hardback book is on its way. Apparently I've got a bunch of copies on their way to my house at the moment, probably dropping next month, definitely ahead of UKGE. So if you want to get a copy, click the link down below to order either a digital copy immediately or pre-order the hardback, which will be released next month. The other games I played over the last few weeks, I got to playtest one of Glenn's games, which is a cooperative miniature game called Playlandia, which was very cool. It's in a sort of middle of development state. I think he's fairly comfortable with the core engine, but there's still some fiddling around with exactly how terrain and some of the core game modes work. So we played 3 games of that, it was really good. And I played some Warhammer 40,000 10th edition with my mate Will. It will come as no surprise that the designer of Gaslands plays orcs, and so that's what I've been playing. All right, enough about the past. What about the future? Well, what is next? I told you I've finished the textbook editing. That means that there's a bunch of fairly tedious administrative work. I've got to finish Pacific Command. The main work still to do there is to produce all the diagrams for the rulebook. So I get to do some colouring in Adobe Illustrator. That should be okay. I've got to get a proposal to Offspray to sort of figure out what the idea for a 3rd edition of Gaslands might look like. So I've got to get that prepared. And I am starting the work to think about what this first Kickstarter will be like. And in amongst all of that, I've got UKGE coming up in June, so I'm doing some preparation for that. And if you are in the south of England and you want to see Hobgoblin, we're also going to be at Broadsides, which is in Kent, and there's going to be a Hobgoblin tournament there, which you don't have to know the game in order to participate. It's sort of a learn and compete event that I'm really looking forward to. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me in my workshop here. I should probably tidy up this mess now that I'm unpacked from Salute. If you're interested in following along with my journey, click that subscribe button below. And if you would like to see me continue to make videos like this and put out games like the ones what I just put out, then please consider going over to patreon.com/planetsmashergames and drop in a couple of bucks in the tin each month. Thank you so much, and I will catch you around. Bye-bye.